And welcome to chapter 9. This chapter is a really interesting chapter because it covers a lot of things, but it's a lot of steps that you have to do related to depending on what you're doing. But it's very specific. So it's one little task, then another little task, and they're all separate from one another. So it gets into what's called business intelligence and data analysis. So you can use Excel to look at a lot of scenarios and set goals and to look at the data to create information for what you're going to do in the future. So one of the things in this first part is a scenario where we can set up what the current scenario is, save it, but then create different scenarios with different inputs to see what it would look like a best case and a worst case type of scenario. And then you can actually save them and edit them later on. So that's one of the things we'll do. And you can actually create a report based on this as well. We're also going to get into what's called goal seek, which is a what if analysis, where we're able to set our goal and work backwards for some of the inputs to see what we have to do to reach that particular goal at the end. For instance, when buying a car, you could use goal seek to determine your loan amount if you can afford a $500 a month payment type of thing. So you work backwards on those type of things. So we're going to cover that, and then we're going to use the solver, which is another analysis tool that helps find the lowest, highest, or specific result for a formula by changing values in other cells within limitations that we set. So it can be said that you are solving a problem in reverse because you start with a desired answer, and what solver does is calculates how to reach that particular answer. So like what we're going to do with Paradise Lakes, we might set a goal for quarterly revenue and use the solver to determine the best way to reach that goal by calculating a target for each category. And you set a lot of different inputs to do that and different variables within that particular situation. And you can create a report related to that as well. So 3 different things in this one. We're going to start by going to the revenue, which we'll do some other ones as well. And we're going to do a scenario. So we're going to select D4 to D7 for March. Okay, right there. And we're going to go up here into our data tab and over here into our forecast group and go into what if analysis and do our scenario manager. Okay, so right now there's no scenarios. So we're going to add one, and we're not going to make any changes to this first one, and we're going to call it our original data. Okay, so we're just calling it original, and it should say D4 to D7 because that's what we selected, and we'll just keep the default comment and select OK. And that shows those 4 selections that we had chosen, and we'll click OK and close. So now we have one scenario saved. So if we wanted to change some of that information and we went into our scenario manager again, and you see the original is listed, we're going to add another scenario. And this one is going to be our best case scenario for those same particular ones. So when and it'll say D4 to D7 again, we're going to click OK, but we're going to change these particular numbers. So our best case would be 62,000, and then our excursions 36,000, and then 28,000, and then finally 20,000. We click OK. And that is our best case. And then we're going to add one more, which is going to be our worst case scenario. And for this one, our worst case is 55,000. And then we're going to go 30,000. And then we're going to go 22,000. And then finally 12,000 as our worst case scenario. And then we have 3 different scenarios that are set up. Okay, so what we do then, once you get these and we close this, and let's say we go here to A2, what we can do is we can show a scenario. So if we go to our scenario manager, and let's say we want to look at our best case scenario, we come here and we show it, and it changes those numbers for us as if that's our actual particular data. Okay, and after that's displayed, and then we click close and we can take a look at it. So that's our best case scenario. And that's what's showing at this point. And then you could switch back to the original or look at the worst. But if you wanted to see all of those at once, one thing you can do also is if you go to what if and you go to the scenario manager, that's one thing that we can do. We're going to click on summary. And we want verify that scenario summary is selected. And we're going to select E8 for where we want this. So because we're going to look at our total revenue as our outcome based on those 3 different inputs that we had here. We'll look how it impacts those. And when you click OK, it creates a new sheet of our scenario summary. These are the original, best, and worst case scenario. And then based on E8, which was our total revenue, this is what the outcome would be. All right, so that's how the scenario manager works. It allows you to create different scenarios by changing those numbers. Okay, so let's go now to our recycling tab and talk about goal seek, which gives us the answer, and then we work backwards with the inputs. So we're going to go to D4 is where we're going to go to. And this time we're going to do a what if analysis, and we're going to do a goal seek. So over this one, we're going to change D4 to 50. Notice that right now it's $45.50. So if we set a goal for our total rebate to be 50, okay, then what number cells are we going to change? We're going to say, well, how many pounds do we need to collect to make that happen? And then we click OK to run the goal seek. And you can see it works backwards and it changes our pounds collected to 142. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and accept that as our goal. Now let's go to D5. Let's do a couple more of these. Okay, so we're going to go run a goal seek. And we're going to change D5 to 50 for Breezy Point by changing that particular cell. And we'll accept this solution as well. All right, and that's for D5. And then, of course, what we can do here is we can adjust these, get these down to 2 decimal places. And then we could do this one as well, down to 2 decimal places. Should have done that before. All right. Now, then we could take this also and we could do some scenario managers as well with a scenario manager. So B4 to B7, we can work the other direction, just like we did before. Go to what if, which is under data, what if, and scenario manager. And we're going to add a scenario for this one. And we will call this one current, because you always want your starting point. All right, and that's all good. And we won't change any of those values. And we'll keep it there just in case we wanted to change any of those particular numbers. Now, one of the things that they're going to have you do also is to add this group over here on your add-ins. So if you don't have the Analyze area, to do that, you go under File and Options, and you go to your add-ins here. And where it says down here at the bottom, you click your Excel add-ins. And I went ahead and did my solver and my analysis because we will need that later. And then you just click OK, and it adds this group up into your ribbon. So make sure that you have that. So we're going to keep going on with this, and we're going to do our solver now, which does some different parameters. So we're going to go to D8 and look at our totals here. This cell has a sum formula, and we're going to use our solver to set up some constraints. Okay, so for the set objective, we're going to select D8. That's our objective. And we want to, and that's absolute, we want to find our maximum on this. And we're going to be changing some cells from B4 to B7, which we kind of already did with some goals, right? But we're going to see if that's possible based on some other constraints. So we're going to add some constraints. So the first one is by, well, we can say B4 can be less than or equal to 150, which we will add that. But also B4 cannot be greater than or equal to or they has to be, B4 has to be greater than or equal to 130. So we know that we're going to be realistically between 130 and 150, okay? And there those are. That's B4, all right? So now we're going to do some more of these constraints, and we're going to go to B5. So I go click on that. Less than or equal to 160 is what our realistic goal is. And then we're going to go B5 is greater than or equal to 150. And we'll add that one. Okay, now we're going to go down to B6. And B6 is less than or equal to 175. And I know I should have just hit add on that. And then B6 also greater than or equal to 150. I'll click add. And then I'm going to go down here to B7, set some constraints up for this, less than or equal to 200. And B7 is greater than or equal to 180. So we got lots and lots of different ones. So we click OK. Whoops. Cancel that. So those are all of our constraints for B4, B5, B6, and B7. A less than, and so it's a range of numbers that it can be. Okay, so we want to make the unconstrained variables non-negative, that's for sure, and we're going to choose the GRG non-linear for our method of solving, which we're not going to get into what that is in this particular class, but you can see it's just a problem solver. It's an engine that solves these complex type of problems, and then we just click our solve button. Position the results dialog box to see cell D8. So we want to make sure we see D8. All right. And we're going to save this scenario as one as well. And we're going to call this our max. Click OK. And now we're going to run this. So we're going to click OK. And that does give us our max number. Notice what happened to some of our pounds collected. It got changed, and this is a particular one as well. So one of the things too under that I should have done, if I went to the solver, and there it is, okay, and we chose solve on that. So make sure. Okay, so we kept our solver ones, and we've got these reports over here. So if I click answer and I run it that way, it'll create a worksheet down here as well. And it gives us all those constraints and everything else related to that particular one. Okay. We can also create a scenario report. So like, let's go to our recycling one right here, and let's go to our what if and scenario manager. And we can do a summary manager on this one, and we want a summary, and we'll click the results on make sure it's D8 again, and we click OK, and that creates a summary too for this one based on those current values and then based on the max ones as well. But then the current was our original scenario, and we can look for comparison on that. And then they talk about you can uninstall the solver, but you don't need to. But that's basically those three different ways of solving problems. Everything from going in and changing the scenarios to doing the goal seek to doing the solver. Again, you just got to be very careful and very detail oriented. So I'm going to save that, and then we'll pick up with part 2 here in just a little bit.